and so I don't think we have either Richard or Austin on the line with us, but I know you had some questions, Eric, about the Masonic Lane.
I think those got answered in some file review that I did. And I sent you over an email just a few minutes before our meeting to you and Rebecca. I can do a screen share if you like, but I have a snip image of what was a proposed for 25 Masonic Lane, the recommendation for how to configure out there.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay.
So just because I'm not as familiar with town, if this is what Austin and I forgot the other gentleman's name, we're proposing, you know, like what they're doing, Richard and Austin, then this is one option out there. I had just been kind of strategizing with our team based on the information I had at hand, and then I came across this that had already been kind of drafted by Russell. So.
Right, that was an early one, and but the concern with that was that it would have required opening up Main Street and having to have a police detail out there in order to do the work on the main there. And so what we had subsequently agreed to, that if you look on this photo, the way the photo is set up here, all the way on the right side, where it says Witts Lane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there was a curb stop there for the property that's on Masonic, right at the top of their driveway, and it would probably be maybe I don't know which 25 Masonic is, if that is Richard's house or it's anyways, it's on the Witts Lane side of the driveway is where this was the driveway was, that where it would come up from Witts Lane along their driveway, and then would at the top of the hill then would split and go to Richard's house, which is closer to Main Street, and then the opposite direction down to Masonic Hall. So there are four properties that would be. So that was considered to be cheaper than it would be to bring it in from Main Street.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about some of the sizing aspects of the line and some of the materials and things like that. And if, the rest of that still makes sense. I was just talking with the team about, opportunities for flushing and whether fire suppression was going to be needed and different materials that were allowed in the town and things of that nature. So, just taking that all into consideration in whatever the ultimate plan was with the perceived contractor potential. I think it was, Slade, could be Robert Auer or somebody. And if that was the case, what their approach was, and just ultimately at the other end of the day, whatever it is to make sure that it meets, the town's needs and rules and regulations and so on and so forth. And there shouldn't be any issues. I mean, what's proposed there really is the curb stop at the end at the lodge, and then the ability along the way to isolate and valve and things like that. But you can see the sizes that are specified are consistent with our previous conversation.
Yeah. So Neil and I were talking about that again, and Neil is confident that, and he can speak up too on this, Neil's confident that the 2-inch line up from Witts Lane would be adequate to cover those properties. Masonic Hall is not, it's not a large facility. They don't have a lot of heavy usage there. I don't know, I've never been in it, but I don't believe they even have a commercial kitchen or anything in there that, and they don't need the fire suppression system in that building.
Okay, excellent.
Jim, the only things that, I don't know if Neil has a comment on this, but is the Witts Lane connection into the main on Main Street, or is it down on Commercial?
On Witts Lane.
Where does the Woods Lane connection meet the main? Is it on Commercial Street or Main Street?
Come down from Main Street.
Okay. That answers my question, because from a pressure standpoint, if it was coming up from Commercial, they might have pressure issues there.
I think.
So that definitely is not a concern. The only other one is, does that also mean that we need to execute a right-of-way across that private property?
What it is, yes, Richard will be, and I sent him a format for an easement to be used, because since Woods Lane, I'm sorry, the driveway is one that's on private property there, but also Masonic is a private way.
Right.
All the property owners on Masonic have to sign the easement as well. So I
So
sent
it's
him,
basically one easement for all these private property owners.
each one will use
Yeah,
a set
okay.
format for it. And it's
Yeah.
the format that we used back in 2013 when we did Summit Avenue and Baker Avenue, because Baker Avenue was a private lane.
That sounds great.
So he's putting that together, as well as the agreement for the, which I believe you've already seen, correct? Is that correct?
No, I haven't seen a copy of the agreement yet, no.
Oh, I'll send it to you right now.
Okay. But I would hope, Eric, that we're going to get a rendering from them fairly soon, because that would show that they, the drawing of what, bringing it up from Woods Lane and where actually the curb stops will be along Masonic.
Fair enough. I just wanted to be able to share that with John, who was also on the call this evening as well, but just be able to share that with John and the team so everybody's prepared and on the same page.
Okay, good. All right.
Get to that main from the other side of the street.
Say again, John?
I hope I'm clear enough. If not, I can switch this. Can you hear me? Let me try. Is that better?
It's pretty good, John.
Okay. Can you get to the main from the other side of the street? Like if you dug and somebody's pointing out, there's a thing called a back tap. You actually tap the main on the back side of the main, make a loop and shoot a mole under the street and dig a trench on the other side and pick it up there and fence down to the house. That's just another way of doing it.
From Main Street rather than Woods Lane?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know if you have room to do it. Looking at his drawing, but I've seen it done in a lot of places that, because they can get at the main from the other side of the street. And they dig under and they tap the main in the back and they make a loop and then they shoot it down the street. It's just a thought. I don't know if you have room or whatever. Just
Well,
something that make you aware.
the main on Main Street,
That's
I
what I'm
believe-
talking about.
that's the one you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
That is on the, I guess, well, I'm trying to think what direction that would be. That would be on the kind of the north side of the street. And so it would be opposite of Masonic Lane.
Yeah, it would be over to the other side of the street.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. If you could dig down to it without digging up the road, you could actually tap the back of that main and make a loop. It's called a back tap. And you swing it around and you shoot a mole under the road.
But wouldn't we still have to we'd have to open up the street there in order to
Well,
do
that's
that?
my question. I don't know how close the main is to the side of the road. It's
Well, were
close
you
enough.
there? Do you recall when they did the connection for the fire suppression or fire service at the Historical Society? It was pretty close to the north side of Main Street. I don't know that it was if it was actually in the street or not.
I may be able to get Mike to get down and do a mark out on it, where it is. Drop a mark down. We have a tool to do that. Just cover all the bases. if it's easier for you to do it that way, maybe even be more expensive, but it's just a thought and it's something I've seen in the past.
Rather than bringing it up from Woods Lane, you're saying.
Right.
Um,
It may, like I say, in the long run, it may even cost you more. Who knows? But that's
Yeah,
just an
well, I think that-
alternative to digging up the street.
I think the concern was cost, that because the cost is going to be borne by the residents who are on Masonic Lane.
I'll ask him to see where the main is just for,
Okay,
that.
okay. Neil, do you have an opinion on that? You have to unmute him, Rebecca.
He should be, he should,
There he is.
Yeah, the main is about 5 feet in from the edge of the road, from the fire hydrant.
Is it on the north side of Main Street?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, they could look to get a quote from Robert B. Hour for both the Woods Lane access as well as the Main Street access.
The main street will be more expensive.
Right, we thought that. Yeah. Okay. Well, obviously, this is still, it's a project that is in the works, so we will continue to be discussing this. So I'd like to move on, if possible, if we go on to the E. coli bacteria incident. Eric, if you want to give us an update, because aren't we due, when do we have to have that, is it called level 2 report in?
Yes, the level 2 assessments due on Thursday. We're well positioned to do that. Rebecca has some items that she's getting together. We have items that we're collecting. We expect to have our draft fully complete by tomorrow midday for any signatures or review that need to be done before submission to DEP on Thursday.
And before we go on to that, do you need a motion on the agreement with the Masonic folks?
you guys
Well,
made that motion on the October 6th.
No, but I mean the agreement to go ahead and sign it. Or does that, to execute that, do they need that to get moving financially?
They don't, I think we have to, obviously, we have to wait now if we're going to look at both the cost of Main Street as well as Woods Lane.
Well, that's kind of up to them anyway, though, isn't it? I mean, they're gonna decide with Whitewater and Robert B. Hour what they're putting it in. So from our standpoint, we don't really care, do we? We're gonna get an executed transfer and an easement, so we don't care which direction they go, right? Or do we?
Neil, have an opinion?
What's that?
You
Do
have
we-
an,
Is that a question?
Yeah, Neil, do we care which way the Masonic folks go? I mean, do we?
No, it's just a matter of how much they want to spend. If they have an unlimited budget, it doesn't make any difference, but cost is a consideration, and the Woods Lane option is definitely cheaper.
And but from our standpoint, once they turn it over, is there any difference to us if they go one way or the other?
No. No difference.
Okay. So,
the only thing that I would say, Kurt, the reason I would like to hold off on, approving that at this point until we've actually had a chance to review it.
okay.
Because I don't think, and most of us haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I didn't know financially if they needed something to get going. Sounds like no.
I don't think so.
Okay. Sorry, Eric.
No worries at all. I get it, But yes, as of right now, we're well positioned for our submittal due on Thursday with all the action items. Primary legwork operationally was done by John, and he's on the call this week, and we'll be probably going forward because John's a lot closer to the body of work for the most part and can speak to things more timely than I can. But like I said, we're in good position working with Rebecca, more related to notification related items and things like that, that just when things happen and some of the language that will be ultimately included in that. The forms filled out, the ER1 form, the Tier 2 form are all positioned to be submitted on Thursday. The required newspaper posting, spoke with Rebecca about that as well. And we're just kind of waiting on a copy of that ultimately.
Any update on that, Rebecca?
Yep, he just sent me the email probably about a half an hour ago. So I'm going to go speak to Chief Hurley, who originally did the reverse, the code red call, just to see if he has any wording that they put out for the Saturday night and then the Sunday morning, what the difference in the wording was. And I'll put that in Word form and I'll send it over to Eric and John. And then I will explain that we called on Sunday all day. I did it a little bit in the paperwork for John, but I think I just need to be a little bit more detailed.
And do you have any update on the newspaper posting?
I do. I actually, Denise Coffey, she was on vacation last week, so it was a little difficult. So I spoke to Karen Doobie and explained that I needed to speak with Denise, which I did. And she put me in touch with the Cape Codder, who should be listing it either today or tomorrow. I told Karen Doobie, she said that was fine. They're going to send me a copy of the article.
Okay. So this would be the article that that was approved, or the wording that was approved by DEP.
Yes. Yep. The one that DEP sent over to us that said it needed to go in. So it was on the website when it needed to be, and on every board and committee page as it needed to be. So we were just waiting for the newspaper to go ahead and print it. So it should, like I said, either today or tomorrow. I'm going to get in touch with, her name is Deb. I'll get in touch with her again just to see when it was put in. And then I will also send along a copy of that article to Eric and John.
Okay.
Thank you, Rebecca.
No problem.
Just another a point on this issue or this incident. And Neil and I were out there this morning at the Coles Neck site with Mike Nee, and originally I was under the impression that there were no shutoff valves up there, that the closest one was down on Route 6 at the near the entrance to Old Hay Road, when in fact after talking with Mike, apparently there are shutoff valves at each of the wells that would stop the flow of water entering into the water main if those were closed. And Neil made a very good point that if the one thought was that were we to install a new valve up there, one single valve between the water main and the water coming in from those three wells, that we would end up with that would be 4-inch, and then once we change this water main down to or to pipe it up to an 8-inch main, then we'd have to put in a new valve. So it's kind of like, does it make sense to do that before we do the rest of the work on this water main? So, for the time being, if we can continue to keep those wells offline or close down the valves at each of the wells if necessary to disable any flow into the water main from individual wells.
Yeah, that's pretty much spot on. I mean, that's where the isolation was made after the incident to assure that no water would get in, and that's that's the current status. There may be an opportunity with another valve between the station and Route 6 to isolate there and be able to flush to the hydrant. But mid to longer term, ideally having a 3-valve cluster at the hydrant there that gives us the ability to, on the other side of the hydrant, close it off, run those wells, flush, check chlorine residual, take samples as needed, then be able to open and allow that into the distribution system and ultimately utilize that. And whenever the wells there at Gristmill, Gristmill aren't being used, we could isolate before the hydrant and allow that to be a great end of the line flushing point for that whole section of the system, as we did when we chlorinated and flushed back to that point. So that's what the 3-valve cluster would give us, and that would be the recommendation. But seeing how that aligns with the additional work that you want to do out there to make that a more viable source to support that area of town, I think that's just an additional discussion for us to have, just as far as timelines and what your goals are for the town.
Okay.
I kind of have Jim,
Go
I
ahead.
just have a kind of a crazy engineering question, maybe, for Eric or whatever, but part of the problem, I think, and we may not completely understand how we got E. coli in there, but it seems to me that when those wells were not being used, that in some sense almost creates an opportunity to create a problem. Whereas if they were in service, and what I was thinking is, if those wells are, they're actually open, and then pressure sensing the line, they could potentially either backfeed or maintain pressure from flow from those wells, and then have some limited use on a more continuous basis. Does that make any sense?
From way I'm understanding it, Kurt, I'm sorry, just getting some bad feed. But Kurt, what way I'm understanding the question is, we're kind of like that spot on with what we were ultimately trying to do there, is to be able to keep, we've always wanted to keep Gristmill as that viable backup. I mean, even until March, April timeframe of this year, those were still putting out, like, it was like 60 or 70,000 gallons in and around March and April. They were still viable sources, providing water to that area of town. And to John, who's also on the call, I think long term, that's a better way to do it, to keep that and get that system back up online. And really the only variable has been for really primary reason, John, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, is really related to the controls work and the RFP that was out there. So once the PLC issues and communication are done, we can, if needed, do some additional chlorination, flushing at the hydrant there, take supporting samples. But ideally getting that back online would be a good thing, supporting that area of town, keeping that as a viable water source. The control situation is really the limiting factor on holding that up. And then in the meantime, working towards a good plan that dovetails with the longer term plan of the 8-inch main and a 3-valve cluster right at that hydrant. Because to your point, Kurt, being able to have that, keep that as a viable source if anything happens and we had to take that down for some reason, the process for bringing it up and then exercising or doing whatever we need to do would be a lot more feasible for the operator.
The isolation valve, wherever we put it, and how many we put, they do have leaks on either side, so you could flush. The valve is shut, either from the pumps or from the main line. Is that correct?
Exactly, Tom. The 3-valve cluster would be exactly that. You got the stub off for the hydrant there, and you're isolated on either side, allowing us to flush from the well house or allow from the end of the system flushing. So that was the idea, right there in one place that's very workable from an operation standpoint.
Good idea.
Any other comments on it? I don't think there's any action item at this point. Sounds like we're moving ahead with a submission for this week. If nothing more, then I would say let's move on to the next item, which is the status on the water meters. Eric, you want to give us an update on what you know about that? And
Yes, so I don't have a lot on this week. Just our focus has really been dotting the i's, crossing the t's, getting everything together related to DEP response and required. So it's taken the majority of the time. I have located some files that have a lot of the supporting information that was being, prepped to be able to supply you guys with some options and things like that. So I have that. I just haven't had time to go through, speak with the vendors and an engineer on it. So that's what I'm working on. I fully expect to by next Friday to be able to have a good report back on kind of next steps regarding the water meters. So I apologize for not being able to get it done this week, but this, the E. coli event has really been our primary focus.
right. Yeah. Okay, well, we will keep it on the agenda, moving, for a subsequent meeting.
We do have one Neptune meter that was installed last week.
So what's that going to do for the reading now?
It'll have to be a manual reading for right now, just because we don't have all the meters set up to Neptune, but we didn't have any Mueller meters left. So it didn't make sense to order more Mueller meters if we're not going to go that route. So they had a Neptune meter over in Eastham. They went and got it. It's now being used, I'm pretty sure 35 Main Street. They just hooked onto town water. So they have a Neptune meter. And for the meter reads that are going on November 14th, we'll just use that as a manual read just because it's 1 meter. Was I boring? No, I'm just kidding.
I know. Do you go to the bathroom? What happened?
I don't know.
No, it's just got it's going to be, it's setting up a nightmare, but anyway.
Sorry about that. It sounded like some explosion outside here. So
There goes the water system.
anyway, so. All right, I'll just give a quick update. I understand from Mike Travato that with the contract for the replacement of the SCADA system is back now, has been signed. So we will be ready to move ahead on that in the near future. And we talked about the valve at the Coles Neck Well site already. So that we'll leave that out for now. And the next thing is the financial model. And we've had some discussion on this in terms of the search for a consultant that can assist us with that. And I know Kurt had one suggestion. We did, as you may recall, we did have some talks with a representative of the firm Tie and Bond out of Boston on this, but obviously we would like to have more possible candidates that could help us with this. It's not something that I think we can do in-house. We don't have the capacity or the experience with something like this, and we have enough experience with what doesn't work, and I would like to avoid having that happen again here. We really would like to move on this, particularly as we're looking at other potential customers where this may be an issue. One, for those sections of the system that are not online yet or could be online fairly soon. If we were to, once we get the main and the new main in, we're going to have the option there for a much larger area, and we would need to be looking at what the model would be for connecting any new customers there. And we also still have about 5 or 6 customers, potential customers on Route 6 across from Cumberland Farms, for whom we have not offered connection to the system yet. But that's something that we should be considering, to make that available to those folks, or neighbors to Cumberland Farms. So Kurt, do you have any suggestion on the consultants?
I'm unmuted. No. I actually did send out an email to Scott Horsley to get some recommendations, because he obviously was a principal at Horsley Witten. He's circulating in some circles where, we might get a couple of other additional recommendations. I think Mike, if Mike had an RFP to put out, if we had, in my mind, it's basically looking for a consultant that would develop a new rate structure that would address long-term financial stability of the water system. I think that's kind of what we're looking for, is somebody to do that. I would imagine that the consultant would also have the experience in the elements that would be necessary to transition either new customers to a new rate structure, or how to handle, existing customers to the extent the rate structure changes. So those are, I don't think it's much more complicated than that. I think those are the issues that we were trying to get addressed.
So if we want Mike to put something out, could you help him with that brief section on what we're looking for here?
Yeah, the scope of services, sure.
Yeah. That'd be good.
I'm sorry.
One part I think will be untangling from the old customer. I had to pay to hook up this much, and now you're whatever the changes will be.
Right, the transition plan, right. Either for old customers to the new rate structure, or to maintain the deal that the old customers got.
So I can actually tell you, go ahead.
I'm sorry. What to keep in mind is that firm Abrams Consulting and Engineering out of, I believe, Framingham, Mass, that we discussed last meeting. I know they've done some work on the Cape and done some supporting in some of the supporting towns, specifically with what you guys are looking for. So just another vendor for consideration related to supporting you on that.
It's Abrams out of Framingham?
Yes, I'll look up the information and send it over to you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Eric.
I actually signed on for, I'm taking a class in December for small water systems to help guide them on financial models. So not that I'm going to be an expert in any sort, but they may be able to give us ideas or you ideas as to where you could go to get the financial model that you're looking for the smaller water systems. It's a 2-day class, so I'll bring you back all the information that I get from it.
That's great.
Great.
Well, let's keep that to ourselves, okay? Yeah, so don't let other people in town know that you're going to have these skills, because
I won't, I promise.
they'll be looking for you to fix this. So.
Yeah.
Well, I did go inside the water well, so I know what it looks like now.
Yeah. All right. So, Eric, we'll look forward to getting your suggestions there about Abrams, the information from them. The next item we had on here was about the water main project and a plan for the engineering services. And we've had some discussion on this, and in accordance with the state's provisions with regard to engineering services specifically for projects such as this, the state does not consider this as something that would require competitive bidding. So we are in a position to be able to use to use environmental partners to continue providing engineering services to the town for the water system. I mean, they have done essentially all the work on the system since, I believe, the early 2000s. The documents that I found where when we brought them in to do the master plan and then the phase work that we did in the early 2000s, and then the major work that was done in 2010, or 9 and 10 for the construction of the water tower and also the Boy Scout Camp Well site. And then subsequent to that, they did the work on the next phase of the project, which was 2013 for the Summit Avenue and Baker Avenue expansion that was done then. So we've used them essentially for all of the work that's been done on the system up till now. So we had some initial conversations with Paul Millette about proceeding with this, and what we need to do at this point is to get an outline or some kind of a contract document together for this, and with the understanding that environmental partners will also provide us with their guidelines around that they use for contracting such as this, where it's not a competitive bid process, but that it follows what would be considered best practices in the industry and the pricing structure that is consistent with standards in the industry. And we would need to include that kind of information into a contract document that we would like to have reviewed by legal counsel, and then before it goes to the select board. And because the select board is ultimately responsible for the sign off on the contract. One of the reasons that this is, is critical importance to us is that we need to get the engineering services underway as quickly as we can, because in the event that we receive, any funding through Mass Works program, we need to be prepared. We need to be as shovel ready as possible to start work on that in the spring. And that's one of the expectations from the state with respect to the Mass Works grant. So that's why we feel that it's important to get this contract underway as quickly as possible, and so that they can start some of the kind of additional work that's required to get us ready, including such things as the survey work that needs to be done, and work to get approvals from the Department of Highways with respect to construction or work that will need to happen along Route 6, for example. So we're going to need to meet again with Paul Millette of Environmental Partners to flesh out the contract details, to get that into writing, something that we could then have reviewed by legal counsel. So Mike and I will be working on that in the very near future. And then we will ask for an opportunity to go in front of the select board with the contract documents. Any comments, questions?
Just a administrative question. Does the Board of Selectmen have to sign off on this, or is it just the town administrator as the contracting officer? Since we're like I'm just trying to, not that I care, and not that we wouldn't ever want to tell the Board of Selectmen exactly what we're doing, but just strictly from an execution standpoint, do they actually have to approve it, or?
I thought that they did.
We're an independent, you know what I'm getting at. Because of the way we're structured, it's I think there's a hand's length relationship with the town.
I don't think they have to approve it. You do have to tell them, but the town administrator signs off on it. I can double check on that from you. I'm just remembering from Penachuk and those contracts, the select board did not have, they knew about it, but the town administrator is the one who signs off on it.
I'm trying to
Right.
recall what happened back in 2013, who signed off on that, whether it was the town administrator or if it was actually the members of the select board at that time.
I can look into it. I'm sure I have that, a contract in my
It's
office.
there. I know it's in the file.
Okay.
Um, But that's a good point, Kurt, that we should look into that.
And the reason I'm bringing it up is I can imagine other things that we may need to contract for that are within our budget where we basically, and you know, technically the water main is now because it's approved by the voters.
Right.
But you know, I can see where a political body may have a difference of opinion on something where we actually control that budget and the budget's approved, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
So
You're absolutely right.
Um,
The harbor master has the same thing. Of being an independent, and yet we have to go to them with our hand out. I don't think it's necessary.
We lost you for some of that, Tom.
Yeah, that we are an independent, and we have the responsibility of managing the system. That the idea that we're going back to the select board for
Something's wrong.
this doesn't seem right.
Well, I don't know if it has to do with the size of the contract, because just know that we can anticipate with this based on what we saw from the estimates that Environmental Partners provided us on the overall project, that engineering services, the initial portion of it for the design and bidding process, and then the subsequent project management piece, all of that was around, I believe, around 400,000. So whether or not that if the size of that contract or potential contract has anything to do with who signs off on it, I don't, I think that's something that we want to clarify and make sure on that before we move to the point of even saying who's going to sign it. So I just wanted to let you know that Mike and I are going to be moving ahead. We're trying to get the contract documents together on this. So
it's exciting. We're moving ahead. This is great.
all right. The next item is something that Rebecca can tell us about. If she's still with us.
I am. I just had to look at it. So I had a phone call the other day. Actually, I think it was an email about someone called and asked if they were going to be compensated for the water during the E. coli scare. So I know they weren't using the water, but they wanted to know how that would work for compensation. I said I would bring it to you. I didn't know how that would work, but I would bring it to you and let you discuss.
Well, I know that in accordance with our regulations, the town is not responsible, for the incidents such as this, and we're not responsible to provide any financial remuneration in an event like this. However, we may choose to want to offset all of our customers' water usage for during the period, say by the amount of water we assume would be required to flush water lines which would be an insignificant amount. Probably in the range of maybe like 500 gallons or something like that.
So would you divide the 500 gallons between all the customers, or
No.
how would you do that?
Individually.
Okay.
500 per household on the Coles Next system or something like that.
Well, everybody had to boil water. Everybody had to flush there was required or recommended to flush their water lines when this project was back online, regardless of where the property was located.
So how many customers do we have right now?
290.
So that's 145,000 gallons at 0.001 per thousand.
Well, what is our rate per thousand now, Rebecca? The base rate?
I'm pretty sure it's like $1.69.
Right, I thought so. So we're talking about maybe $1.69, maybe like the value of it, maybe would be like 85 cents per household.
Yeah, I think if my numbers are right, it's $245 for the entire system.
Right. I mean, if we feel that this is important, you know.
I think that's a goodwill gesture. We might I think we should do something as a goodwill gesture, no matter what. My biggest concern was, I think there were a couple of people that did have some direct impacts. Those would be the people that I think we should be talking to.
Individually, you're talking about.
Yes, there were. My understanding was that there were at least one person that was hospitalized.
But we don't know what that was.
No, we don't. It was, however, I think they did get a path report of E. coli. And they were connected, so it was pretty proximate to. It seemed proximate to us anyway.
That was in the area of Coles Neck.
Yeah, there was one person. It was just something I think Rebecca and I had asked her about it, and it was somebody who was on the system, and a neighbor said something to somebody else, who then popped up on Facebook that this person went to Mass General, blah blah blah. So we don't have the facts, but I do think we want to. If there was a case like that, I would think we'd want to ferret that out. That's somebody who potentially
Hell over the real can of worms. And E. coli generally, to test for it, did not have no effects.
Yeah, if you send me who the neighbor was, Kurt, like email me, I can reach out and just see the validity of that. And then I can bring it back to you guys and you guys can go from there.
But, other than that, it's, if it's $245 for the entire system or something like that, what do we offer?
Yeah.
We gotta do some. On the other hand, it's insignificant.
But I think that Kurt pointed out, it's a goodwill gesture here.
Right.
It's not costing us that much. And I don't know, Eric, in your experience, have you had anything like this happen anywhere else? And where the municipality has taken any action to provide relief to people?
In my experience, no, but let me talk to some team members and get some feedback from them. But my personal experience, no.
Okay.
Hi, it's Kathy Reed. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't get on until about 20 minutes ago, but here I am. I think it's a very different situation if someone was hospitalized compared to everything else.
Right. We agree. So that's why we want to follow up on this.
Yeah. I think 85 cents or some small amount is negligible, but You know, the other thing, I mean, depending on whether that person has insurance and so forth, you know, could be more than we expect.
Right. But if
Well,
you, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just gonna say, you know, their out of pocket would be their deductibles. You know,
Mhm.
and I'm sure that they have to have insurance in Massachusetts, so we're not talking, we wouldn't potentially be talking, I don't think, about a lot of money. You know,
Could, yeah, could be up to 20% of whatever the thing was. I mean, depending on who they are and what they have. But at any rate, you know, you're looking into it, Rebecca, so we'll find out about it.
Yeah. All right. All right, the next item on here is minutes. And I don't know, thank you for sending them over, Rebecca.
Sure. Did you get the right ones this time?
Yeah. 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 So if people have had an opportunity to read through them. I have a couple of comments on both sets of minutes. This is really just a correction for.
No, that's fine. I pull them up and I can fix them while you
Well,
correct.
it's on Masonic, the discussion on Masonic Lane that we had in both meetings.
Okay.
It's the other person who was on the call with us was Austin Knight, Knigh.
Thank you.
Okay. So wherever his name appears as Night, please.
Got it.
And that was the only thing that I had from those. So do I hear a motion to approve
Sorry.
the minute of the meeting of Wednesday, September 2nd?
so moved.
Second, Tom seconded. We'll have to take a voice vote on this, so please make sure that Neil's unmuted. Kateri?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Kurt?
Yes,
Tom?
Yes.
Neil?
I unmuted him, but he has to unmute himself now.
Yes,
Okay, and I agree. Yes, so it's unanimous for the meeting minutes of the September 2nd. Okay, the next one is for the minutes of Tuesday, October 6th. Do I hear a motion to approve?
yeah, it's the same correction on Austin Knight's
Yes.
name.
I'm on it.
Okay. Second,
I'll second.
Kateri,
Yes.
Neil,
yes,
Kurt,
Yes,
Tom,
Yes,
and I say yes, okay. So it's a unanimous approval on that. And I see the lights are flickering here again, so I don't know if that means we're going to lose power again or not. But if what I'd like to do is just move toward adjournment here, but with an understanding of when we're going to meet next. And if we take a look at the schedule. The first Tuesday in November would be Election Day. That's not
And you
going to,
cannot have a meeting on election day.
no.
So you can do the 10th or the 11th.
What do people think?
10th.
yeah, the 11th is Veterans Day.
Yes.
that 10's good for me.
Yep, that sounds fine.
Mhm.
The 10th?
10th.
Okay. All right.
4
So
o'clock for everybody, okay?
that's fine. Okay, so the next meeting will be Tuesday, November 10th at 4 p.m.
Good.
Okay?
Okay.
If there's nothing further, I'd like to adjourn the meeting then.
Second,
Okay. All in favor?
I.
Just-
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.
All right.
thank you. Take care.
Rebecca?
Yes,
can I
yes,
talk for a minute? Yeah.
sure.
Uh,